I'm Debra Morrison, a 42-year financial expert. Welcome to the We Can Do It Women movement, where women 60 and wiser step into the spotlight and make the rest of their lives the best of their lives. I'm your host, Debra Morrison, a wealth building expert and champion for extraordinary women just like you. For over 47 years, I've helped women secure their financial futures, and now I'm on a mission to ignite a revolution. Yes, showing the world that at 60, 70, and beyond, some of us might be a nickel slower, yet we're all just getting started. And our esteemed guest today comes to us from Sydney, Australia's inner west, and is the proud mother of 2 adult children and 2 very furry but beloved golden retriever dogs. She is an accomplished actuary of over 4 decades and a renowned author of her own memoir. Angelina, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Deborah, and good evening to you. And it's morning in Sydney, so it's lovely being able to connect across the continent. So thank you.
Exactly. I am so pleased that you got up early to be with us. And I did not pronounce your last name, which because it wasn't on that first sheet, but you are with us, Angela Mastrippolito. Is that right?
Beautifully. Oh, absolutely perfect, Deborah.
Well, I'm grateful for that.
Beautifully done.
So, wow, what an upbringing you have had. And I'll just give some of the outline, and then I'm going to ask you to fill in some of the details. Born in the sugarcane fields of Far North Queensland, in the small town of Ingham, which is known as Little Italy for its strong Italian migrant community. Born in 61 into a tight-knit Italian family where traditional gender roles were strongly enforced. Your mother often expressed the belief, this just floored me, that when a girl is born, she is born to be just a pile of straw, reflecting the limited
Isn't it?
place on women in her culture. Oh, my heart. Talk to us about that.
Oh, isn't it? Isn't it the most dramatic thing to say? Like that she was a function of her upbringing. So she was born at a period of time. She was born 1924. So her upbringing was really fashioned by political maneuverings and also what the church taught about women in that day and age. So her teenage years she was part of an Italy that was going through the fascist movement with Mussolini. And there were some incredibly strong statements through that time about the role of women. So I think one of Mussolini's famous statements is war is to men as maternity is to women. So it was a sense that women had only a place as the bearer of children, and he restricted access to women in occupations and things like that. So she was brought up in that sort of context where women basically had no agency. Very sad, I think, given how resourceful and talented these women were. So they never actually got the chance to use their talents in any way beyond homemaking, which I think is tragic. The other thing is that women didn't have any financial agency either. So they had also no education.
Yes.
So Mussolini's restricted sort of education for women. So my mother only went to year 3. So her whole upbringing had this sense of her place being as a subordinate within the family. But she was a strong woman, my mother. So I think underneath all that, there was a will of steel
I
underneath it.
know. And she and you had some little subtleties going on. So we're going to talk about that in a second.
Yes.
How in the world you began school at age 4, you didn't speak English, and you quickly academically excelled in math and physics. Holy camole.
Yes.
How did you do that?
Sorry. Oh, just a bit of luck, actually. It was, oh, well, there was my own upbringing had elements of my mother's, but nowhere near what she had. So I went to a Catholic school, which actually didn't offer mathematics for girls as an advanced subject. So there was a bit of luck in that. I was the first class in my school, which was a school in Ingham, that was given the opportunity to study mathematics. or else the only options I had was to study secretarial studies, which I ended up doing as well. But that lack of opportunity of being the first class ever, I can't believe in this day and age that was the case. The first class ever to be offered mathematics was crazy. It's unheard of in these days, but that's how it was in my own upbringing. I also picked up science in year 11 because I didn't have any science background at school. So I went to a history class and hated it. And I said, "Oh, can I please study physics?" And, and the teacher said, "We'll give you a go." Anyway, and then I loved it. So I picked it up. And then I picked up chemistry at university without any chemistry background. So I was determined that I would pursue things that I could do, and there were risks. Like there was a risk in allowing me to do physics in year 11. There was a risk allowing me to do chemistry at university, but it paid off.
Oh, I
So
should say so. Gosh, that is amazing. I love physics myself. I love math and so forth. And just to think that you were on the cusp there, the first class. I mean, really talk about busting through barriers. Um, this is not nothing to be growing up. You struggle between the tension between the cultural expectation of your Italian heritage,
yeah,
which called for obedience and traditional roles for women, and then the emerging women's liberation movement that promoted empowerment and equality. So I can only imagine the duality, right, in a young girl's life, and even as a
yeah.
teacher and so forth, in terms of the duality about the confusion and the inner conflict as you navigate your identity. So you had a few hardships. You had some trauma. Your grandfather having strong fascist beliefs and the legacy of World War II. Wow. What kind of relationship then did you have with your grandfather at home? I mean, was he kind of obstreperous at home as well, and as his political views, or how did it work?
Part of the reason of writing the book was to really understand what was happening at home. We all I remember as a child is these conversations that I just had no idea what they were talking about. So conversations about Stalin and Mussolini and wars and things like that between my grandfather and my father. I had a sense that their relationship was strained, but I really didn't comprehend why it was so volatile, incredibly volatile between them. Very passionate men, both of them, very intelligent men, both of them. So I grew up with it, and I sort of part of writing is just to try to understand what the tension was about. I found out that part of it was to do with their World War II experiences and World War One experiences. My grandfather went to war in World War One, and then he was, in a sense, he was actually a war hero. He was given a Medal of Valor, so he came out of World War One, and he embraced the fascist movement because of the history of Italy in World War One. There's a whole history there about how Italy felt aggrieved after World War One. But then he left Italy in 1927 when my father was 5 years old and my grandmother was pregnant.
Oh my God.
So he came to Australia looking for a new life and then came up with the Great Depression. And then in World War II, he was interned as part of the rounding up of Italians as aliens. So he spent World War II in Australia in an internment camp. At the same time, my father joined the army, as he would, ended up in Crete as a prisoner of war of the Germans when the Italians changed sides, and then came back to a decimated Italy. So their comprehension of World War II and the role of fascism was completely different. So and they were both traumatized. And so my father was traumatized by being a prisoner of war. My grandfather was traumatized by his own, World War One and internment experiences. And then I'm living in a house as a small child with these two men who have such strong political views and strong trauma background. So it was an interesting dynamic. But in the background, I have my mother who can't say anything because she's a woman who had her own trauma experience of World War II. So she's listening to my grandfather saying how wonderful fascist was and Mussolini got done by Stalin and whatever. And then my mother's sitting in her own trauma. And the only way she can sort of be angry at my grandfather is teaching me as a 5-year-old revolutionary songs that would annoy him. So it was It was a crazy dynamic. It was like, but in part of this, the story of my book is trying to understand it all. So it was interesting. I loved my grandfather, by the way. It's interesting that he is so enamored with this really horrible sort of movement, but he actually talked to me more than my father did because my father was traumatized and had PTSD. So my grandfather was like a special part of my life.
Wow. Yes, I read
So,
about your mom teaching you a revolutionary song to quietly irritate your fascist grandfather. Oh my gosh, that must you and she. I mean, obviously he knew the song, and so every time you started to sing it, he would probably be pretty agitated, right?
yes, and I remember it to this day. I remember singing it. So then I sort of tried to work out in the book why this song was so irritating to my grandfather, and I discover it through the book. So it has the song is called Bandiera Rossa, so it's sort of it has its own political connotation. So it was an interesting childhood. I I was in a household with very strong personalities, so it was a bit of a shock to my parents when I ended up with the same strong personality. So
Well, I'm thinking,
careful what you
how could you
it has
not
to happen.
plan a
DNA
parent?
has to exactly.
So you had a lot of support from your brothers who actually encouraged
Yes.
your academic success. So talk to me about how old were they? Were they older than you and did they mentor you?
Oh, they were much older than me. So my older brother John was 10 years and my brother Lucio was 5 years older. So they're sort of living in a modern Australia at the same time. So we're sort of, we're in the same boat, but I'm sort of in a different storm because I'm a girl. But so my brother Lucio was also good at maths. So when I started to be okay at doing maths, he was so excited for me. So he really encouraged me to pursue. So he was the one that got excited about my education. My parents couldn't care less, by the way. So they just got my report cards and put them in the drawer. But my brother was in the background, sort of being my cheerleader. So that was such a wonderful thing for a young girl to have. And I'm forever grateful. And my brother John, being 10 years older, he was sort of like the person that spoiled me, as the little sister. So, and he was going through his own issues with my father. I have a story in the book about my father not there was a times when men had long hair. It was a time in the 70s when men had long hair. And my father was adamant that he should be a good young man and cut his hair. So there's conflict there as well. I didn't answer your question before about Helen Reddy and Iron Woman. So they came out at a time when I'm thinking about the role of women, of role of girls. So and the words "I am woman, I can do anything" like was really in my ear. So it was sort of egging me on a little bit. Um, so I was because I grew up in Ingham and I didn't had no concept of women and careers. So I was a really naive when I was listening to the song because when I ended up pursuing a career, I could do everything, but I think I say in the book, I could do everything, but only if they let me. So there was this sort of conflict there.
Yes, for sure, for sure. And of course, we're talking about her memoir, and I was loath to, or I neglected in mentioning it. Her book, her memoir, Le Seconde, Inheriting the Unspoken. Did I butcher that name?
Oh no, you did beautifully, Deborah. You did fantastic.
Great. So we're going to weave in and out of that because what a rich memoir that is. Let's talk about your graduating university and you qualified as an actuary. Now, you guys get this. Uh, Angelina was the first actuary from far North Queensland. And when she qualified in 1988, she was one of only 30 actuaries in Australia. So we are talking about a pioneer for sure. So that had to have been another test of your resolve, did it not?
Well, when I finally left university, I decided that I didn't want to be a teacher because I trained as a teacher to start off with, and I went into actuarial studies. So that meant moving away from North Queensland to a city called Brisbane. My father was so incensed with me that I had broken a real traditional value of not staying close to the home, that he didn't talk to me for 6 months. So I was actually told not to, my 21st birthday, he didn't even celebrate it, didn't wish me happy birthday. It was a real test between our respective wills at that particular point in time. So yeah, careful what you wish for when you have a daughter who's as stubborn as you are. But so that was an interesting sort of period in my life, and so that was a real test of my resolve to do something a little bit different. And then I went into the workforce. I was the only woman. Usually, I was the only woman in the actuarial group. Had to deal with unconscious biases there. So when Helen Reddy tells me I can do everything, I'm going, I'm trying, Helen. But anyway,
Help me
there's
pray,
things
Helen.
there that there are things that I need to deal with. So, but I was incredibly lucky in this. The parts of my life, I'm really fortunate that there were some turning points that really helped me. So when I did graduate as an actuary, there was a real shortage of actuaries in Australia. So my capacity to find a really meaningful job within the industry was boosted by the fact that there was a shortage. So I ended up joining a consulting firm, and again, I was the only woman in the room at this point in time. So that had its own challenges.
Right, right. Well, you describe the transformational role in shaping your sense of yourself. Of course, now you're moving away and you're getting the wrath of your dad as one of the very few women. And you had a discipline depending on logic, risk analysis, and precision. And those really, of course, tie into your love of math and so forth. But I think the challenge and the opportunity was probably, working in tandem to develop your confidence and your resilience and your independence. And
Yeah.
obviously, you did well at all of that. You rose to senior executive positions. You were required to assert your voice and authority in environments where women's contributions were frequently undervalued. That had to have been an eye
Yes.
to a lot of traditional males, and you basically reevaluated your inherited gender roles from your traditional Italian upbringing. That had to be a little ostracizing with your male peers that were your age, was it not?
It was. It's sort of I talk about unconscious bias in the workforce. So uh, uh, hopefully it's gone now, but there was um, there was a sense that I didn't look like a professional or a professional person in the workforce. So I had to really believe in my own worth, even though my upbringing told me that I shouldn't be the boss. I shouldn't be commanding men. I shouldn't be, speaking out. I shouldn't, I had to be quiet. There's a whole traditional thing in the culture at that point of time of what women could and could not say. So then you go into the workforce, and some of those things were there, like at the same time as the traditional Italian things. So there's a real, I thought I'd left it. So I thought I'd left all that when I started work, but I found it in a different way. So I had to really navigate it and really, again, what women are allowed to say and when they're allowed to say it and how you navigate all that. That was actually a little bit of a shock. I sort of thought, I'm here again. So there were times where I really had to assert myself. So when I started off at a consulting firm as a very raw actuary. I was like 27 at that stage, and my boss left, and I took on all of his clients. So at that point, so that was a big thing for a 27-year-old to take all these multinational clients on, and I worked very hard. I did okay. I did quite well with them, and the nice thing about being a chatty Italian is that your clients really like you because you chat with them. So I got to really know my clients, and I was quite, I think they enjoyed working with me. Um, Towards the end of that year, I wanted to be promoted to a principal of the firm, which was unheard of at that age for a new actuary. And I said to them, I put my stake in the ground. I said, you must promote me. These clients rely on me. If you don't promote me, then you'll have issues with your clients because they quite like me. So I really put a stake in the ground, and thank God they came to the party. So there were parts in my career where I really had to put stakes in the ground, like things like remuneration are always interesting with women, and where you're paid differently. So it didn't make me popular in some cases, but I had to do it. So there was things that I had to do.
Well, I'm sure it did make you popular, and yet, I mean, it was only right. And to your point, these clients were very, very much enmeshed with you, loved you, and I think that maybe they make some calls behind the scenes to say, what do you think? And they're like, oh no, Angelina rocks. So I'm so proud of you, so terrifically proud of you for putting your stake in the ground, not once, but dozens, I'm sure, of times. So in a career
Yes.
over 40 years, you're a trusted advisor to large Australian and multinational companies, and you attain senior executive positions, including CEO and COO in a number of superannuation funds. Now, I had to look up annuation fund. I didn't know what it was. And it is somewhat similar, if I can understand it, to the America's 401k plan, whereby
Yes.
the company with which you work, they put away some money for your retirement and legally required, I guess, in the superannuations. Am I pronouncing it right? Annuation funds?
Yep. Perfect. Yep.
They're required to put away 12%. I don't know if it's changed by now into these funds, and then the funds are invested and so forth. So, did you actually oversee the management of these, Angelina, or were you in the administration of the actual funds and the companies? How did you involve yourself in that?
Well, as a superannuation funds are very highly regulated in Australia. So, and you're right, what you say, it's 12%, and there's a government requirement to put money into them. So, from an executive position, I was actually responsible as a CEO. I was responsible for everything. So, I was overseeing the administration, the investment, the insurances. So, I'm responsible for communications. So, this buck stops with me. So, it's me and the board at the end of the day. So, and I'm responsible to regulators to make sure that things are done properly, and due process is followed. So, it is a fairly significant position. Again, it was sort of there's a bit in my career where I actually leave my consulting career because because I had children, and there's a whole thing in the book about women with children. So I won't sort of say, but I had a very bad experience when my first child was born because those days, corporate Australia really didn't know what to do with a pregnant executive, like honestly. So there's a story about what happened there. And then I sort of changed jobs. And then I decided to work part-time when my children were quite little. And again, there was biases there. So even though I was sort of, getting lots of clients. So I ended up leaving the workforce for about 5 years and working for myself as a consultant. So I sort of thought, I have enough credibility in the Australian environment that people will give me work, and they did. Towards the end of that, I decided, again, sometimes I I like a bit of risk, but I decided that I would not go back into consulting and I would become an executive in a super fund. And I applied. And even though I hadn't worked in a traditional sense for 6 years, I got the job as a CEO. So I sort of trusted myself that I could do that. So I applied and got the job because that's what I wanted to do. So it was sort of like, this is what I want to do now. And that was a good opportunity. I was very grateful to be given that. But yeah, again, it was sort of in an industry that there was a few women CEOs at that point. There wasn't many, but in the superannuation fund industry, now there's a lot more. But again, that was a learning experience. And plus, the fund I was working for was to do with electricians who are most definitely male. So here I am as a female CEO with a completely male board, and looking after a fund with mostly men. So that was that was an experience, but I enjoyed it. I quite loved it. So
You might, so how many billions of dollars? I mean, that had to be huge. The amount of money you were overseeing the CEO of the super fund.
oh yeah, that one fund was around about 1 billion, so it was sort of like a fair bit of money. So and then another fund, the fund after that, when I was COO, I think it was about 11 billion. So we're looking at big money to oversee. So um, it was good. I actually quite loved it. Very challenging, but I really loved being in that environment where you could have not have control, but oversee things and make sure that things are right for your members. So I loved it. I actually really loved it. So
Oh, you
really
excelled.
enjoyed it.
There's no question. I mean, that no average woman was going to make it there. And this when you say, I have a little taste for risk, it's so curious because I quite understand the role of an actuary, and it's just like, and there's like no risk in my humble of an actuary's job. It's just like black,
Yeah.
white, right? And yet you really kind of broke the mold on so many fronts, Angelina. I compliment you. So you then translate these strong analytical abilities, interpreting complex data and assessing the risks and so forth, and then you slide that right into your writing style, and you structured your memoir with clarity and insight, and all of the actuarial training and so forth with regard to attention to detail made for some very interesting writing in your memoir. So talk to us about when you started writing your memoir.
There was I think towards in my late 50s. I've been to Italy many, many times, just because I love Italy, but I never really had a sense of my Italianness, and there's a reason for that because when I left England, which was very Italian, and I moved into corporate Australia, the idea of having a different nationality than the dominant culture, which is Anglo-Saxon, like I really couldn't speak about my Italianness and my background, and so and part of identity is history. Part of identity is knowing your family history as well. And I knew very little of it. I didn't sort of identify with my Italianness. Didn't talk about it because you don't talk about these sort of things. But then I went to Italy in my late 50s, and I'm sitting around the table with my friend's family, and I'm thinking, oh, I love the sense of the conversation. I love the passion. I love the fact that we're getting together with food. And it's brought back all these memories of my childhood where we'd all get together and we're very loud and very passionate. And I
A lot of
really
talking
started
with
to,
a lot of
yes,
talking.
now that I'm talking with my hands. So there's this sense that you start talking about Italian, I talk with my hands. But there was that sense of really I need to know more about my history. I need to delve into it. There was a hankering at that particular point, and I started to really write my memoir at that point. There's also a sense of um, trying to understand my family. So part of the book is called Inheriting the Unspoken. So I did inherit trauma from my family, which I had to sort of deal with even as part of my career. And a lot of people do. It's not just Italian families, but a lot of people inherit trauma from their families of origins. So I really wanted to have a sense of why my father was the way he was and why he was so adamant that he could control me in a sense, and why my mother had the ideas about her value as a woman, why my grandfather used to get up and leave all the time. And so there was a real curiosity about the trauma within our family. So putting those together, I sort of really started to write the book. It took me about 3 years, by the way. So I sort of
Sure.
wrote it, unwrote it, wrote it again, and wrote it again. But what was so interesting in the process that every time I would, so I started to, because I didn't have any. My parents had died by that point. Everyone had died, so I really had to. And then my mother died, and I found photos and letters, and so I tried to reconstruct a family through their letters and their photos. I'm going to tear up soon, but um, and I also found them in history. Like I said, my father was a prisoner of war in 1943. What was happening there? My mother was on the Gustav line at the same time. My grandfather in the National Archives, I went to the National Archives in Australia to find my grandfather's internment records, and they sent me 30 pages about him. So there was a real discovery of what was going on. One of the most wonderful things I discovered was good. My father was a difficult man, and I found, the sources of his trauma. But I also found letters from him to my mother, and he was a different man. There's a man I didn't know, and he was a man who could write beautifully, passionately, like he was a writer. But this was a man who experienced trauma, that had to, sacrifice everything for his family to survive in an Australia that was only just welcoming migrants. There was a so the depth that I found within the characters in my family was such that, like, there's a conflict there between, oh, why did you make my life so hard, to,
Yeah.
oh my God, did you go through this?
Yeah. Yeah. I can't even imagine. And I had an interesting relationship with my father. It wasn't so close at the beginning, and it became we reconciled a lot in the latter years, which I was most grateful for. And yet we also found love letters from my dad to my mom, and there's something else. Now, I can't even imagine, your dad being a prisoner of war. I mean, this is unimaginable. I don't know as you ever know what happens, because everybody is so shame-filled and so forth and so on. But this
Yeah.
had his beautiful writing. I gotta think it spurred you on to say, I'm finishing this memoir, and it's gonna be just as great as I can make it. So I don't know, I think that you got some of that writing gene, or you developed it on your own, but congratulations.
Oh, thank you. I think that's a wonderful thing, for having had a career in maths and then realizing, oh, I actually quite like to write. It's such a it's something that you don't sort of associate with the mathematical thing. But
No, they're pretty
it's
disparate,
something quite,
but you melded
yeah,
them.
a little, yes. But I did do, I think I say in the book that I did do a lot of business writing. So within my career, I wrote a lot. Like, I wrote a lot of reports, like, I wrote a lot. So there was a writing there, but not the writing that comes from the heart and the soul, and not the writing that sort of goes within the depths of a family history. My mother's story, like, I talk about my mother, and the cover of the book has me and my mother. And if I can say, this is my story is a women, though there's male characters, it's a women's story. It's a story about her and me, about being women. My mother, I would say, is one of the most courageous people I ever know. We didn't get eye to eye, because she had sort of different views sometimes, and things. But it's a story about how she develops as a woman too, and what she had to go through and things like that. But her story is, towards the end of the book, I tell her story of World War II, and it's heartbreaking that she went through what she did. Like, and it was a story, we knew that she was traumatized by war, but I never had a sense of how traumatized she was. She actually lived on a front that had the Germans at the north and the Allies at the south. She was living on the front. So, and all that entails.
Oh, I can't even imagine. You do pay terrific honor to your mom and your grandmother, presenting their
Yes.
lives as sources of inspiration and courage for you.
Yeah.
Talk about the family. You're very well known for storytelling, and I can see why it's very rich. Your family's complex journey, and you're showing it as universal and relatable across different cultures and
Yeah.
immigrant experiences. What stories do you have about your grandma?
Well, I have the grandma I'm named after, because Italians name their kids after grandparents, so you have a lot of the same name in families. Anyway, I was on my mother's side, my grandmother was called Angelina, like me. My mother's father died when she was 9, so she had to support 4 children as a single parent. And my mother talks about her being quite severe, quite strict, and you can imagine why. So I think she was a strong woman for what she had to do. In those day and age, there was no pensions. There was just basically support your family.
Yeah.
My other grandmother, my Nonna Lucia, which was my father's mother, she's a really interesting person because my grandfather left her when she was pregnant with my aunt Linda. Now, the expectation of women at those days, for Italian women, is that you follow your husbands. She refused. She went across every expectation of an Italian woman, and she said, "No, I'm not moving."
Oh my.
So I only knew her for a few years because she ended up like she sort of only came to Australia when she was 84 after my grandfather died. But yeah, I wish I'd known her better. She was, I can't imagine her like putting that stake in the ground saying, not coming. So
Right.
she's, so I have all these very strong women in the background who had to deal with their own challenges. So I have strong men and strong women, but then women had to do it in a different way. So part of my wish is that I would have known my grandmother Lucia lot better. So, so also part of the issue with my father and my grandfather was the fact that my grandfather refused to come to Australia. So there was this sort of undercurrent of why that would be. My grandfather and my grandmother have a really interesting story. My grandmother married my grandfather when he was 19 and she was 22, and he was just about to go to World War One. So I sort of wonder if it was sort of a bit of go, I'm going to
Yeah.
war, let's get married, sort of thing.
Right. Yeah.
So, so she's an interesting person as well.
Wow. Wow. This is so intriguing, and when we all understand, more and more about the cultural differences. I mean, you had the cultural differences, you had the sexism, you had the terrific trauma laced upbringing, and that brilliance, right? To go to school at 4 and start to master math and all of that as a young girl, 4-year-old, for God's sakes. I applaud you. Um, this whole aspect of your life transforming. Now, talked about your kids. You had the two children, and when you
Yes.
were like 30 or something like that, I'm trying to remember.
Oh no, I was much older, Deborah. I was the 37. I was 37 going on 38. I had my first, and the second was 39, and I turned 40 the next month. So I was an older woman, definitely, but it was yeah, so I had them quite late in life.
And so, how did you
Very
raise
joyful.
them amidst all of this? Because obviously, you know what you went through, so you probably were doing triple duty, attempting to parent them in a way that was empowering and yet, with some discipline, surely.
I think I learnt what not to do in my upbringing, like as you say, like it was sort of the sense of no, we don't do this. We don't sort of shout and all that sort of stuff. So it was, and being an older woman, true, I sort of was very comfortable to sort of, I sort of had a sense of observation. So it's again, that's the actual background, observe, strategize and implement. But so it was a sense of like feeling my way within being a mother and listening and observing and doing things a very different way. I found my children joyful because they taught me about childhood. It was a because my childhood was so interrupted, and having them, I learned about childhood. So we had, and part of my upbringing that I forgot to talk about at the start was that even though I had this stuff going at home, I grew up on a farm, and we took risks. We took a lot of risks. So we used to swim in rivers that we really shouldn't swim in. We used to jump off things, so we used to hoon around. So I had a real upbringing about adventure. So the one thing I took from my upbringing that I wanted to give my kids is that sense of adventure. That let's try new things. Let's do this. Let's just pack up the car and go here. So I think hopefully I gave them that sense of adventure and being out there and discovering stuff. So there were good things about my childhood. So it wasn't just about the trauma. So I enjoyed sharing adventure with them. Like my thing on a weekend is let's find an adventure. So we would find an adventure. So I really enjoyed being a mother. I loved being a mother. I still love being a mother. So yeah, one of the joys of my life. Even though career wise, it was probably not the best career move being a mother. But apart from that, it's all good. So
It sounds like that. Well, you really so excelled and were able to shift into being the consultant while you were up, bringing these children up. Well, you're the younger daughter, and with two older brothers, you were jumping off of stuff. I mean, I was raised on a farm too, and we just did stupid stuff, right?
with
So,
this,
I mean,
yes.
we
Yeah.
knew the emergency room staff on a first name basis. I'll just say that.
Don't you love it, Deborah? Isn't that the best, even though it's not the best, like best safety wise? But
But we
there's
can
things
fix
I
anything,
did as a
right?
child I would get my kids to do. Yeah, sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, there's a lag because of the difference. We can fix anything though, right? I mean, I can fix a lot. You can fix a lot, right? I mean, because you're handy on a
Yes,
farm, right?
sounds good.
So you are involved. The references all say quietly involved in several community and volunteer activities, and what
Yes.
rich skills you bring to each of these. You're serving as a director of the Brave Foundation. I think this is sounds amazing, supporting young parents, demonstrating your commitment to social causes tied to the family and community support.
Yeah.
How did you get introduced to Brave Foundation and just expand on that, please?
I love the heart of the Brain Foundation or what it does. So it supports young parents who find themselves, as teens and early 20s with a child, which it happens. So it supports young parents have goals themselves, goals for education, and I have a real passion for education, and I have real passion for people, not because being a parent, you don't have to overcome being a parent. It's a joy being a parent, but I have a real passion for people moving in directions. So, and the Brave Foundation supports young parents to do that. It supports them. They're not just young parents; they're people with ambitions and goals, and it supports them, it mentors them, and I love that. And I love the fact that it goes hand in hand with them. So it's a wonderful organisation, and it plays to the passions I have in giving people opportunity, giving people a chance
Yes.
to be who they can be and who they want to be. I think that was a struggle in my life. There was that sort of real pressure not to be who I wanted to be or who I could be. And we have to foster that in young parents. We have to foster that in everybody. That belief that regardless of the expectations on you and what society thinks about you, you can be who you want to be. A very strong belief for me. So it plays into that. The other organisation I'm involved with is called University of the Third Age. So now it's an organisation for retired people, and again, I'm loving it because it's the other end of the scale where it says to older people, we can support you to be who you want to learn to be. Like it's about giving opportunity to keep on learning as you grow older, keep on experiencing things, keep on having adventures. So it's sort of at the other end as well. So we have expectations on young parents and we have expectations on older people that as you get older, you shrivel up and die. No, it's a time for learning. It's a time to expand. It's a time to be who you want to be. It's a time for adventure. You don't stop ever.
Ex- No, you
So,
don't. And I love that. The acronym is U3A, West
yes.
uh, Inner West University of the Third Age. I love it. And so these like adult communities, Angelina, and you go and visit them, or are they still in the community in their own homes? How does it work?
Oh, it works at it's an organisation that for a small annual fee, it offers courses and presentations. So I actually recently did a course on superannuation that so it offers courses on history. It offers courses on uh, um, sort of literature. It offers courses on politics. So it provides courses that people can just come to and learn. and for a very, very small fee. So all the leaders are on a volunteer basis. So yeah, I just did a 3-part series on superannuation, which is really, I really enjoyed giving it. It was just wonderful. And just, the financial aspects of retirement.
Absolutely.
So I thought I can contribute this and provide a course on it. So it's all volunteers who provide courses. Another organisation I'm involved with is called ASEAN, which promotes
Yes, I want to talk about
intercultural, not harmony, so social cohesion within different cultures. Again, it's something close to my heart, given that my parents were one of the first immigrants and they had their own issues. Well, not issues, but Australia was still had the White Australia policy, so we're still coming to terms with multiculturalism. So it's an organisation that promotes cultures coming together, not being separate, and an understanding of different cultures, so that we. I think there's a saying that we'll only get along if we understand each other. So part of social cohesion is providing that forum to really understand each other. Because if we understand each other, we see each other not as different cultures. We see each other as different humans with a
yes.
different background. So it's, again, close to my heart. So I am really enjoying doing that as well. So I think that the passion hasn't died as I've got older. I think it's sort of given me more time to do so.
Reignited, yes, exactly. Well, we certainly need that. I mean, I'd like to, rent you here in the United States. We need it really badly here. We're having such a challenge with respecting diversity that is, it's horrifying to me. And so I'm really grateful, and I'm sending good energy towards other cultures and countries that can, be doing this work more overtly. We're having to now go very covert for obvious reasons. So I applaud you, and it's absolutely true. The listening people into speech, right, to gather where their heart is, where their experience is, where their struggles are, where their challenges are, and then to meet them. And I got to think that when you start talking about the super fund, if anybody had not well, if anybody had the awareness, they might be thanking you, Angelina. Hey, thanks so much because I'm still getting the monthly check.
Well, I think that's the thing, isn't it? Like when I was working for super funds, I always felt that like I'm working for the members of the super funds, and I'm working like it's I got paid. It's good getting paid, but it's nice to have the sense that this person in 15 years' time, I've had a contribution to their well-being. I think it's wonderful. It's it's fantastic. I think to know that it's not that I've changed people's lives, but I've had a little inkling of changing people's lives in some way. So that's very satisfying. So
No question about it. You, you don't manage that kind of money lightly, and they do have you to thank, and the other people that were working in the super funds for sure. So tell us, how can women deal with the expectations placed regarding what they should do and what they should say? Because sometimes the opportunities are really shut off for women because of this, that, or the other thing, age, background, culture. Talk to us about how you approach this with your kids and the people with whom you deal.
we have an expectation everywhere, and I think part of it is learning that expectation is not gospel. Expectation is a reflection of the other person, not of you. So, and I learned in my book that, or through researching my book, that expectation is a factor of a lot of things. It's a factor of the social climate. It's a factor of the political situation people grew up in, particularly my father and my grandfather. It's a factor of what we find acceptable at that particular point in time. I sort of what was unacceptable 40 years ago is acceptable now, but that didn't make the unacceptability 40 years ago right. It just 40 years ago, it was just a reflection of 40 years ago. Didn't make it right. So we have to approach expectation in that manner. So I think we just need to evaluate it and consider it. some expectations are actually okay. Like it's fair enough. The expectation that you're a good corporate citizen, that's a good thing. But I think we have to have a sense of, does that expectation to, is that congruent to what I feel I should do? Is that congruent to the talents that I actually have? That there was an expectation that girls shouldn't do maths, but then I find I could do maths. Where does that fit in? So it's sort of then, does does expectation meet your talent? Does it meet what you want to do? What gives you joy? Does it meet um, your integrity as a person? Does it meet the fact that does it devalue you? Does it uplift you? So we have to look at expectation in a very, very different way. And I think the book my book is also about my reevaluating of what expectation is. So an expectation changes by the, like expectation in different countries changes according to political leanings. That doesn't make the expectation right or wrong. It's just the political leanings. So the interrogation of them, I think, is important. But we also need to look at what gives us joy. Like if expectation is robbing us of joy, it's robbing us of soul, it's robbing us of using our lives in a particular way. We just have to go against it. Um, Again, there's also strategies of going against it. I think there's a danger if you go totally against it, then you find yourself quite isolated. Again, there's a strategy. I think strategizing within it and finding a way around it. Finding a way to deal with that expectation that you are still in the game,
Yes.
but you've pushed against it slightly. So, and you've changed it slightly. I think there's a there's a it's a bit of art and science in that.
That's a beautiful way of putting it, Angelina. Thank you. I kind of think of it as one foot in the local circle, right, of your job or your community or your expectations, and then, or maybe your job or your community, and then another foot in the system. And you realize,
Yeah.
okay, here's the system. But like you took a stand early on in your life, wait a minute. I'm going to have a baby and then have a second baby, and I'm going to continue working, and I'm going to then come back. I mean, so I have to think that you are the master of giving people suggestions as to nuanced strategies to get what they need and want to fulfill their livelihood and their personal joy. I mean, you had a whole life of subtle strategizing, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, thank you, Deborah. I think I had to, I had to work within the system, as they say. So, because I did love my parents, I didn't want to alienate them totally. At the end of the day, I love them, and at the end of the day, they did sacrifice a lot for me. So it's within when my father finally spoke to me again. It was sort of coming in and out of that relationship in a way that I still showed love, but I still kept my integrity. So and then sometimes that was hard. There's a story in the book where or towards the end of his life, where he's basically refuses to come to my birthday party because I made a decision, my 30th birthday. Then he dies. There is cost in it. Um, but we have to be true to ourselves too, and sometimes that means not creating pain for other people, but um, saying to the other person, this is going to cause me more pain if I don't pursue my own integrity. So that there is a decision. I think I talk about the conflict between compassion and courage. Sometimes we have to be courageous. Sometimes we have to be compassionate. Yeah.
That is so beautiful. And now in your 60s, you're taking up, or not even taking up, you're probably a pro now, ballroom dancing and
Oh,
the Argentine tango. That is a sexy dance right there, girlfriend.
oh, isn't it ever, Deborah? Honestly, it's just I just love it. It's just I just do it with my dance teacher. So it's very dance teacherish, but yeah, you do some really sexy moves in it. I love the fact that the Argentine tango doesn't actually have a beat to it. It's actually quite a lot of improvisation in it, so it sort of flows and it sort of ebbs and flows, and it's a dance with your teacher where you sort of go on a journey together with the music. It's such a beautiful dance. I love it entirely. So I I took up dancing very late in life because I thought, because I love music. I grew up with a mother who loved music, and I thought, what gives me joy? Music. The music gives me joy, and so it's my little pocket of joy. I love it. So
Well,
I can
I
see I'm
applaud.
animated.
Yes, exactly. And and to dance with your teacher. I mean, because he obviously can lead in a way that, another student is not going to be able to, especially the
Yeah.
Argentine tango. I know just a little bit about it. So amazing. Oh, Angelina, how can our peeps get in touch with you? Because I think they want to be writing you, commending you, and so forth and so on. So what's the best way of them reaching you, please?
Oh, I have my own website. It's www.angiemastropolito.com. So they can send me messages there. Also on Instagram, Angelina underscore Mastropolito. So they're good places to find me. I think since I've published the book, I've had some beautiful messages from people. It's really touched me that it's struck a chord in some people about families and about talking about things and uncovering traumas within their own families. It's also struck a chord with Italian people and people of the second generation, and to say thank you for writing my story, thank you for talking about education for girls, which was such a big thing for my generation of Italian women and all women basically. So thank you for talking about it, because we needed to talk about how it was. So I love messages. I'll respond to everybody. I love the conversation. I love hearing from people. It's actually my honor to hear from people and to respond. So
Well,
please send messages.
I hope that they will, and we will put all of those sites in the show notes so that it makes it
Thank
easy.
you.
And basically, I want to thank you for the amazing wisdom and your time and your talents sharing with us today. We are the richer because of it. Thank you, Angelina.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure, Deborah, and it's been so wonderful to meet you. It's just
Thank,
an honor to meet you. Thank you.
thank you. And thank you, viewers, for joining us on the We Can Do It Women Show. Remember, I see you, I value you, and your greatest chapter is just beginning. If today's episode sparked something in you, and I can't see how it couldn't, I urge you to follow your dream. I urge you to smash together and nuance together compassion and courage in order to find your richest joy. And I always say, and I didn't have my prop ready, pay attention to your money and it will pay you back. Until next time, be well.